Have you ever noticed that a lot of today's mainstream high-end crossovers all seem to look the same? You know what I mean? They all seem to have the same color palettes, they all have around the same types of technology in them, and they all really serve the same purpose. But what if you could find a medium-sized 5-seat crossover from one of the premier leading luxury brands on the market today that really distinguishes itself far more than any other luxury crossover out there? I mean, one you could just pick out in a parking lot on any day of the week. Well, it would seem that Lexus has the answer to that question, and if you're ready, then let's go, because today we're going for a spin and showing you all around this very unique and special edition of the 2021 Lexus RX. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to the 2021 Lexus RX. Now, we have reviewed this generation of RX before, and if you want to see a review of the L version with an extra third row of seats, click the link down in the description box below, and I'll give you a full walkthrough of that vehicle as well. But in any event, it is a Lexus, so we of course have a pretty pricey vehicle to start with. This particular one is an all-wheel drive F-Sport. Now the F-Sport is pretty obvious. If you didn't see it in the glamour shots, it's a little bit more of a sportier package, and of course the all-wheel drive does add to the price tag a little bit as well. With this one, the MSRP is $49,950, so already knocking on the door of 50 grand, and it's full of all the nickel and dime options you could want. I mean, $200 for a wireless charger, $200 for the cold weather pack, $600 for a heads-up display, $640 for heated and ventilated seats, and then you get into the big stuff. $3,365 for the updated infotainment with navigation and the high-end audio system, $1,675 for the premium triple beam headlights, and the list goes on and on. $365 for a panoramic 360 camera, and a special part of this one is $685 for the Black Line Special Edition, which includes a whole host of goodies that we'll see as we go through the review. If you add up every option on this list, the subtotal is $59,090 plus $1,025 for delivery, processing, and handling, and on this one, I'm out of breath here, $60,115 MSRP. So, still a Lexus after all, but does that mean it still holds on to the same pursuit of perfection Lexus quality that the company's been known for years? Well, let's hit the start button, hit the road, and find out. So it may seem hard to believe, but the Lexus RX has now been with us for almost a quarter of a century. That's right, in just 2 years' time, this baby luxury crossover will be turning 25 years old. And in that time frame, Lexus has sort of seemed to stick with the same philosophy. They want a butter smooth powertrain, which it still has. They want a beautiful sculpted exterior, a luxuriously crafted interior that's stuffed to the hilt with all the technology you can want, which it has in all of those categories. But let's start with what seems to be its most prominent feature. And I'm not talking about the way it looks, I'm talking about the way it drives, beginning with the engine, which you can barely hear as you're driving down the road. In the RX and the RX 350L that I reviewed last year, we have the same thing. 6 cylinders, 3.5 liters, direct and port fuel injection, and of course variable valve timing with intelligence. In the smaller RX like this, you're looking at 295 horsepower and 267 foot-pounds of torque, which doesn't really seem like a lot when you consider that this SUV weighs nearly 2.25 tons, almost 4,500 pounds, and that's with the all-wheel drive system that I have in this one. Which, speaking of, you can have it in front wheel or all-wheel drive depending on your sort of taste, but beware, if you do choose the all-wheel drive, the fuel economy does dip, which is to be expected. But in this case, we're only looking at 19 miles per gallon in the city and 26 miles per gallon on the highway in all-wheel drive, and that only bumps up ever so slightly when you choose the front-wheel drive option. To take the words of one of today's most famous automotive journalists, it's not the torquiest engine you'll ever drive, nor is it the most economical, but God, is it smooth. And that's something that Lexus has just done time and time and again. It is one of the best powertrains I've ever felt. Not so much in terms of acceleration or how great a gas mileage it gets, considering after a week I only have about 60 miles worth of range, and I only began with about 300 miles or so. But when you do decide to take advantage of this car's F-Sport personality, well, let's just say it'll get you where you need to go in a smooth and luxurious fashion. Now, aside from the smooth as a lump of Kerrygold Irish butter 6-cylinder engine, or this beautiful 8-speed automatic transmission, or the dynamic torque vectoring all-wheel drive, the RX has always had one thing in every generation that Lexus has ever created, and that is superior ride quality. I'm telling you guys, if you are looking for, like I said, a magic carpet ride, this is one of the smoothest riding small 5-seat crossovers that I've driven. And believe me, as I'm sure you guys have seen on this channel already, I have driven a boatload of these. But Lexus always seems to get it right on the money. If you're looking for something that's not so sporty or I guess you could say high-strung, this is one of the best. It is just pillowy soft riding down the road with McPherson strut and coil spring suspension setup in front, and a double wishbone with coil spring suspension setup out back. And what that equates to, even with the F-Sport package like this one, is nothing short of amazing. This car will just glide down the road effortlessly, no matter how hard you push the gas, and no matter what road surfaces you're on. You just feel just so soft and secure, and you feel like you could do hundreds of miles in this thing and get out the other side without your pelvis being turned to dust and your ears turned into a bloody mess. But let's face facts here, guys. We are still right in the firing line of all the other premium brands out there. Everything from Genesis to BMW to Audi, Mercedes, and so on. And they all are definitely not the most inexpensive cars on the road. As I said, for this example here, not even fully loaded out, and you're looking at a price tag over $60,000, which is a lot of money compared to really anybody's checkbook these days. So for what you are paying, would you expect that this thing should have 1,000,000 horsepower? Not really. Would you expect this thing to be filled with a personal masseuse that rubs their hands all over your back and your neck as you drive down the road? I mean, that would be nice, but I don't find that a necessity. But what you are getting as an overall package with the RX is great. You have a bulletproof engine up front that's been just basically around the RX's entire life, if not even longer than that. And you also have just fantastic build quality, a beautiful, elegant, and sculpted exterior with a little bit more of an adventurous side in this case. But overall, this car is extremely comfortable. It's beautiful to drive, and I can't really seem to fault it anywhere. I mean, yeah, does it have 400 horsepower like some of its twin turbocharged V8, you know, crazy performance SUVs from the Europeans? Nah, but it doesn't need it. It doesn't really need to feel hurried in any way. But what about the other details? What about the rest of that pursuit of perfection philosophy? Well, let's head back to our favorite little spot and go talk about the rest of the story. All right, so after a quick change of scenery, let's take a look at the outside of this thing. And the first thing you need to know about the Blackline Edition is that this is one of the brightest colored Lexus cars that I've ever laid eyes on. Doesn't matter whether it's a car, crossover, big SUV, it doesn't matter. This car is bright. You really need a pair of sunglasses to be looking at this Grecian Water exterior that the Blackline Special Edition gives you. Now, even though we are dealing with a brighter color, this is still the F Sport trim, so a little bit of sportiness never hurt, even though I truly believe that in person this color belongs on something more like an IS or maybe another special edition of the LC Coupe. Now, this is still a Lexus product, so we have all the cool features up front here. So the premium triple beam LED headlights that I mentioned earlier, these have the auto leveling and adjusting, also auto high beam assist. They have the auto corner lenses as well. They're full LED with the LED turn signals down below and the LED daytime running light along the bottom. Of course, we have the intuitive park assist front and rear, so you can see the sensors lining the front of the vehicle here. We have the LED fog lights down below, along with the sort of extended front bumper, at least along the lower edge there for the F Sport. And we also have a lot of metallic black going on here. So you have these metallic black inserts here on the outside of the bumper, and then you have a new metallic black finish to the internals of the giant spindle grille. Now, you guys have heard me say it before, I'm not always the biggest fan of the spindle grille design, mainly just because I think it looks like it's about to swallow you whole every time you walk up close to the front of one of Lexus's cars. But in certain applications, I think it still works. Here on the F Sport, I think it's just the right size, but still the overall design, I'm still just not the biggest fan of. But at the front, we also have the forward camera for the optional 360 around view monitor. And of course, we have the Shrouded in Lexus badge to finish it off. And this is, of course, hiding sensors for things like the dynamic all-speed radar cruise control and other features of the Lexus Safety System Plus. Now, keeping in mind that I have reviewed this generation of Lexus RX already, but that one was the RXL with an extra 6 inches of length added onto the end of it, plus an additional third row of seats in the back. But this RX here, being the 5-seat configuration, I think it is just the right size for a medium-sized luxury crossover. On paper, it's about 192.5 inches from nose to tail, which is about the number I've seen on most cars in this particular category. Now, Lexus really loves to pay attention to the details, as we know, and one of my favorite details is this, the set of 20-inch blacked out aluminum alloy wheels. And I got to tell you guys, wrapped in 235/55 series Bridgestone tires, these things look amazing. I really think they complement the blue paint very, very nicely. If they were finished in silver like a normal RX, I really don't think I would like them as much, especially again with the contrast to the color. Of course, 4-wheel disc brakes all the way around. And you may also notice on the lower half here, where this nice indented curve piece is along the bottom of the doors, there is a black vinyl decal, also a special part of the Blackline package. Now, if you want to talk about attention to detail, though, one of my favorite things about the entire Lexus fleet here in 2021 is all the body lines that they incorporate into their design language. This car really looks so elegant from so many angles, and it might take the right color, like a brighter blue like this one, to really see all of it, but nevertheless, it's really nice to look at. So aside from the typical things like the accents around the wheel arches there, have a nice little body line that creeps around the front, kind of meets at the point of the spindle grille there, right under the headlights. Have a nice steep edge here going up along the hood that kind of forms into the A-pillar. Same with the body line that follows from kind of the middle of the hood under the mirror and kind of skips off that rear door handle and goes around the rear tailgate. You also have another little bit of bodywork here going up, connecting the 2 door handles. And then, of course, as I said, you have the indentation running along the bottom, which incorporates the black vinyl decal for this special edition. In terms of everything else, though, it's just what you'd think from a Lexus product. So the F Sport badges are here on the fenders, at least the ones here at the front. We have fully blacked out side view mirrors, another part of the Blackline package. So we have a little chrome strip here on the bottom. As you can see, they have an individual camera underneath each of them for the side cameras on the 360 monitor. They are equipped with blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. I believe that's also one of the options, or one of the many that's on this particular car. And as you can see, they're also power folding. So when I have the vehicle locked via the Lexus advanced keyless access system here, you can see they fold in. If I want to unlock it, I just have the key on me, I grab the door handle. As you can see, they fold out. And if you want to lock it, just touch the little indentation on the side of the handle. When it comes to the RX's posterior, the design is just as striking as it is up in the front. Okay, obviously we don't have a giant spindle grille occupying the entire middle of the tailgate here, but we do have the very nice LED taillights. I love the L-shaped bars that are running through the main bulbs here, along with your LED turn signals and reversing lights as well. Got more of the smoked chrome going on here just underneath the Lexus badge, and of course your government mandated backup camera is underneath. And of course you have one last little F-Sport badge down there, letting people know that are driving behind you that you're driving the Sportier RX in the family. And then down below, again, we have more extensions along the bottom of the bumper here, standard on the front, sides, and rear, with the exhaust finishers here inside, but the pipe is actually way in the back, so they are still true dual exhaust. And then, as I was saying, in the front, we have the rear half of that intuitive park assist. Now, if you are looking to use your $60,000+ Lexus crossover to do a little bit of cargo hauling, well, it can definitely do that all on its own. Now, you don't just spend 60 grand to use a key fob to open the trunk, or even much less be bothered to pull the trunk latch. No, you opt for the standard power tailgate with the optional hands-free assist. And it is one of those ones you just do the foot motion and But what's interesting about the RX is, even though it is a very wide crossover, as you can see, the numbers on paper for cargo volume almost don't seem fair for a crossover of this size. Behind the seats in the back here, you have 16 cubic feet of cargo volume. As you can see, it's plenty big enough for at least my tripod with its neck extended to fit perfectly from side to side. And also, I can fit just about anything back here, with the exception of something taller, because as you can see, I have this cargo cover in place here. Now, if you take that out and fold down that back seat right there, you're looking at around 32.6 cubic feet of cargo volume, which honestly sounds a little bit unfair for a crossover of this size. I've seen a lot of subcompact crossovers that are starting to get into this sort of cargo volume space. So if you really need all the volume, I would say just go for the bigger RX, get a little bit more room, and you get an extra pair of seats to go with it. Now, you could close the tailgate using the buttons up here. You have the regular one, and then of course the lock function, which once you push that, it shuts the tailgate and locks all the doors at the same time. Or you can just use the kick function again, and it'll close the tailgate. Now, if there's one factor with this Blackline Package RX that has just shocked me about this car time and time again, it is the interior. Okay, I know we've seen a lot of components on this dashboard over the past few years or so, but guys, take a look at this. Look at the seats in this thing for one. Got the sport black leather here with the heavy bolsters, just like you would think of in any F-Sport product. You also have the blue contrast stitch here around places like the headrest, around the middle perforations in the seat here. And then you have the white leather. Look at that. I love this. It just adds that little extra something. It's just so un-Lexus-like to me. But what is Lexus-like is the front seats are both heated and ventilated. Of course, both sides are power adjustable. So on this side, we've got the power lumbar, we have the recline, we have the ability to raise the front of the seat up, and we also have the distance control as well. But then you have a few other goodies that are straight out of the F-Sport bag. You have things like the perforations here at 9 and 3 on the 3-spoke leather trim steering wheel. Of course, you got the F-Sport badge at the bottom with more blue stitching around the inner rim. Even more of that white leather with the blue stitch going up the center console. I just really love that white. I cannot get over it. Also, you have the power tilting and telescoping steering column, which goes in conjunction with the driver's seat memory settings. So not only will your seat move when you start the car, but your steering wheel will go back to its last set position as well. You also have a few of the ubiquitous buttons over here on the left-hand side of the column, also including a nice little change drawer, which is really just big enough for that, like change, dollar bills. It's really not big enough to put your wallet or your phone in there. But the buttons include the auto high beam assist, the power tailgate, the adjustments, and the ability to turn on and off the heads-up display. A couple of blank buttons here and there. You also have the heated steering wheel and the camera button, which allows you to view the full 360-degree around view camera system, even when you're stationary. As you come over to the door as well, we also have some more of the white leather here here with the nice padded black leather to kind of set that off. You also have the driver's seat memory buttons, as you would expect, 3 stages for just the driver's seat only. And we also have all the power controls, including all 4 automatic windows, locks, window locks, and all of your mirror controls, including the button to fold them in manually. Now, just like the outside of the RX, the inside really feels like a very elegant yet sporty place to be. I say sporty, of course, because we are in the F Sport model, as you can clearly tell. But aside from that, even though it has a zillion buttons all over the place and basically a screen the size of an entire state, everything in here is so clearly labeled, it's very hard to miss something. Like, for example, the buttons on the steering wheel, this beautiful thick-rimmed 3-spoke steering wheel, again with the sporty extensions up here at the top, the perforations on the side. I mean, things like the arrow pad and the back functions for your 2 thin film transistor displays that make up the gauge cluster, down to even smaller buttons like the lane departure warning with active steering assist, the distance control for the adaptive radar cruise where the stock is down here. I like a nice nod to the old school every once in a while. And then even over here on the left, all of your radio functions, hands-free Bluetooth, voice recognition, radio mode, seat track, and volume, all very big, very clearly labeled, and I have enjoyed using them quite a bit. Again, being the F Sport, also we have paddle shifters up here on the steering wheel, and quite frankly, I think they just feel cheap. I know a lot of the competitors here use metal paddle shifters on the back, or at least put some kind of nice rubberized grip back here. I mean, there's a good place to rest your fingers, but they just don't sound or feel exactly of the greatest quality. But of course, the centerpiece of the whole interior is right up here on the dash, the 12.3-inch high color, high definition, multifunction infotainment display. But I have 2 gripes with it that I wanted to start off with right off the bat. The first thing is that although it's very big, the coloring is very nice, it is now touchscreen, which really can only be operated by a passenger. If I'm sitting here as a driver, even while I'm stationary, I would need arms about a foot longer to be in a comfortable driving position and still be able to operate all the touch function controls. But you can also use what is, quite frankly, my second gripe, which is the Lexus remote touch interface, the ubiquitous little mouse pad down here in the center part of the console. And while the haptic feedback is pretty good, it controls some of the more basic things within the system. I mean, the navigation, for example, I'm not really a fan of this. The system does have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and Amazon Alexa compatibility, but really to access that, you need to go to the menu functions, which are down here at the bottom. So I have destination, audio, phone, the Nform app suite, projection, which is where you find the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. You have general information and setup, and even a touch or a digital version of the dual zone climate control setup in here. And quite frankly, I don't even know why you need a digital format of the climate control. You have a slew of buttons down here in the middle part of the console. But overall, I mean, some of the features in here I just find a little bit useless. I know Lexus really has the pursuit of perfection mentality here, but overall, I mean, I just think certain aspects of it just don't need to be there. What does need to be there, however, is a 15-speaker Mark Levinson premium audio system, which is an option here for this particular car, but the sound it creates, as we've experienced with Mark Levinson systems before, is nothing short of amazing. Now, it's not all bad things with this system. First off, not only do I love the size of this screen, but I also love the fact that it's still fixed in more of like a tablet style format, because for me as a driver, it's right in my line of sight as I'm driving along. And what that pays off in really is just amazing, because I don't have to look down at the dashboard for any reason. I can just barely move my eyes down to the screen and I can see whatever I'm doing. You still have all the typical stuff in here. So when I put it in reverse, not only do you get the backup camera with the turnable guidance lines, but you also, as you can see, get the 360 around view monitor over here. If I put it in drive, I can get the forward facing camera as well in certain situations. But either way, it's a great system to use. The intuitive park assist works absolutely wonderful. And of course, it does have the automatic door locks as well. So once you put it in any gear other than park, the doors will automatically lock themselves. Going back to the theme of big buttons with very clear labels, check out the center button display up here in the middle of the upper stack. First of all, above all of the dual zone climate control functions here, you can see we have a CD player to start with. Welcome back to the 90s yet again, everybody. I mean, I'm still confused as to why Lexus still puts a CD player in an over $60,000 car when everything else is going hard drive based, USB based, etc. But if you're a little bit older and you still have those old CDs lying around, Lexus still has you covered there. Before we get to the AC though, I love the analog clock in here. I know I have a digital one here in the lower left hand corner of the display. I can also pull one up on the infotainment system up here, but I just really love that this analog clock adds sort of that air of elegance in here. I just think, you know, adding that small detail really pays off in the design of this upper stack here. Now, aside from the CD player, you have your power and volume knob, tuning knobs, the typical stuff, eject, radio, media, seek track, play and pause. But then you get to the climate control system. Again, a simple dual zone setup. You really don't have to hunt and peck to try to find what you need. You have the temperature controls either side. You have the dual function, which is basically air conditioning sync, automatic, fan off. You have the fan speeds here in the middle. You have your different air recirculation settings, front and rear defrost, as well as your heated side view mirrors, as well as your climate zones here in the middle. It's this teeny little button, and that can also activate the defrost settings as well, as you would expect. Down in the center console though, things get rather interesting, shall I say. I don't just mean interesting in the fact that I have like white leather on the sides of the center console, going back to the fact I absolutely love that, but things like you have the simple stuff. You have two sizable cup holders here, plenty big enough for 20-ounce bottles, maybe even something slightly larger. You have the Lexus remote touch interface pad, which I've explained that in several different Lexus reviews. You have the drive mode select system with its 3 distinct driving modes, eco, normal, and sport, and that of course also goes in tune with the digital tachometer up there. In eco and normal, of course, that means that it will stay the color it is now. The moment I flip it to sport mode though, you can see it glows a bright white. You've got the red line much more defined up there at the top. So really nice as far as the drive mode select goes. But the odd part is that I have to move the selector for the 8-speed automatic out of the way to reveal my controls for the heated and ventilated functions for the front seats. Now these have their own automatic functions, but if the gear shifter is in park, as you see here, I have to reach my hand way back in here just to kind of feel around and pray I hit the right button when I'm actually using these. Now, of course, when you're driving, that's a whole different matter, but sitting here stationary with the gear stick in park, I mean, that's just a little bit of a interesting scenario to say the least. Going way up underneath though, I do have a wireless charger on board here, although as you can see, my phone is sitting in this little handy slot up here because it is too big for that wireless charger, and also the OtterBox case kind of gets in the way and the wireless charger can't charge my phone properly. Of course, in addition to all the buttons and everything here in the center, we also do have a decent sized center console here in the middle, which is kind of neat because it almost has a latch where it goes up ever so slightly, and then you can actually push it back even further if you need to get something way deeper down in. Now in here you have 2 USB ports. These are for connecting things like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You also have an auxiliary input and another 12-volt 120 watt outlet should you need a couple of extra USBs and one of those plug extenders. Now in other medium-sized crossovers that I've tested, both 2 and 3 row, in some of those cars I really feel that back seat space isn't always their forte. However, here in the RX, I don't have that problem whatsoever. Now, first thing you need to see is, again, more of that white leather, the sport black with the blue stitching, still continuing on from the front into the back here. And the other thing you need to note before we sit back here is that my tester has a fun little option. We have a universal tablet holder that can be used for things like your iPad, whatever kind of tablet you have. And it has its own little holder built into the headrest of the driver's seat. So you notice it has this almost like USB slot in it. You can put it up here, click it in place, and suddenly you can put your iPod in the back for your young one's entertainment. Now, getting into the back is really not that big of an issue. I get in here, I actually have a pretty sizable amount of space, and I'm sitting right behind myself. I'm over 6 feet tall. I don't have any issues sitting here whatsoever, and that's especially thanks to the fact that the back of the seats are curved. You also have 2 sizable mat pockets back here, and if you want to charge that tablet that you're holding in the back of your seat for your kids, you have 2 2.1 amp USB chargers back here as well, in addition to a place to put their drinks while they're watching their movies. You fold down this rear armrest, push a button, and the cup holders pop out. In conclusion, the 2021 Lexus RX is yet another great example of Japanese luxury craftsmanship with space for the whole family. Now, while the one I've been showing you today is a little bit more on the adventurous side with its brighter color, the blacked out wheels, and the really crazy interior, if you are in the market for a premium 5-seat luxury crossover, you really can't go wrong with the RX. Whether you go with the Blackline edition or not, I promise you, you won't be disappointed. But that wraps it up for today's review. So if you guys like what you see, or perhaps you learned something today, please do give this video a thumbs up. And also, while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, I appreciate all the support, and I definitely feel it benefits the both of us in the end. At the end of the day, though, all the credit goes right back to Lexus USA for lending us this rather crazy example of their flagship 5-seat crossover. But at the end of the day, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.